Hello, everyone. Today we are going to talk about something that affects us all um, very often, consistently. Um, Stress. Uh, and the question is, stress is going to be there. So, like, how can we do our best to stick with our the lifestyle that aligns with how we want to feel, if we have a physique goal, our routines, basically the routines that we have when like things are more smoothly. How can we be able to stick with that? Not necessarily like copy paste, but stick closer to that when stress is high. Um, and I think that what is important is establishing what that looks like before you're there. Because when you're in the situation of high stress, it's too late, so to speak. You have to have established like what you can expect of yourself in that situation prior to being there. That can also looking like been in the situation, not made the best decisions, and then looking at it post and wondering what can I do different next time or what happened here, right? So you really assess the situation basically because as written here, in the middle of chaos, your healthy habits can suddenly feel very optional. And I think that at least is something that I can relate to, and I think most of us can, to some degree at least. And this is also something that I can experience with clients as well. Again, experience this with myself also is that it's not in most scenarios, it's not about us not knowing what to do. It's not about not knowing what eating well looks like, not knowing what movement that serves us looks like, or having a good sleep routine looks like, right? Like most of us, we know what that looks like, but it's about being able to execute on that when stress is hitting us hard, right? So, also kind of aligning this with my behavioral psychology studies that I'm doing at the moment, where basically what we learn in behavioral psychology is that everything we do, or behavior is everything that we do, and our environment is what sets us up for our behavior and the consequence of that behavior. So basically, is written here as a trigger, basically is a stimuli. It's a stimuli in our environment that we react to. So basically, setting ourselves up for success is going to be connected to what stimuli do we have in our environment so that we are able to not rely on willpower, but basically be able to establish our behavior that aligns with the consequences that we want. We were setting up that environment basically. So a stimuli that is connected to high stress could be that we eat, we drink, often, or that can be alcohol. It could be even overtraining, right? So it's about getting kind of a reinforcement that is just right there that makes us feel better. But if that same reinforcer is making us frustrated, feeling guilty, exhausted, if it's connected to overtraining, for example, or just like putting out too much, then it becomes a problem. And it becomes this spiral that we are likely to choose that because we're not the delayed reinforcer of results then are kind of it's it's becoming further and further away. We're not getting closer to it, so that will then lead to more frustration and kind of just feeling out of control, basically. um, so to be able to set ourselves up for success, one can use this little tool then that we could call behave formula. So it's about assessing a situation on forehand or afterhand. As I said earlier, you need to kind of have this established before or as a result of high stress so that you don't start with this in a very stressful situation. It's about just having tools to cope with or tools to be able to deal with stressful situation and not just having a tool for eating right, having a tool for how to train, having a tool for your nighttime routine, because all of those things doesn't necessarily matter when when convenience take over. It's not about not knowing what to do, it's about you just need something convenient, and that's going to win every time in most scenarios. So kind of knowing what to do in a coping situation, that is kind of what we are after here. And I think we often can forget about that. So it's also like kind of dividing like positive there's two forms of reinforcement. So reinforcement is basically just like behavior that becomes more of or that we maintain. So positive reinforcement is when we're adding something to our environment to create more of that behavior or maintain it. While negative reinforcement is when you're removing something from your environment to have more of that reinforcement without necessarily adding value. It usually is so that when we're adding something, it's kind of in a positive sense of like we're adding something joyful, like something we want, something we need. And when we're talking about a negative reinforcement, usually that aligns with something unpleasant, right? We're removing something unpleasant. And that's the focus. And generally speaking, if you start kind of noticing how you live your life, it's very common that most of our behavior and our choices are kind of driven by negative reinforcements. So the more we can change that, the more we can live by positive reinforcement. We're gonna win basically. So I would say that if I'm gonna connect negative reinforcement into something specific, it would be kind of a fear-based decision making or fear-based behavior. I also connect this like always done as a coach without maybe necessarily thinking about it as positive and negative reinforcement, but always with my clients want to focus on what we should do or what is best to do instead of focusing on like what not to do. So this kind of becomes the same thing. And I think as just human beings, we are very likely to be, for example, when we are having a specific physique goal, it's very often that we go to, I'm going to cut up this, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to like, this is off the table. Like those are usually the first things we think about, like the what not to's. We are not as inclined to think about what we should do, or that will kind of come secondary. So I challenge you to be aware of how you think yourself, like what comes up first for you. Is it the not to do's or is it what to do? So that's kind of the same, something that we talk a lot about, or something that comes up a lot with clients can be, for example, when you have a lot of sugar cravings, for example, then it's what we don't want to do, or what I as a coach do not want to do, is like lecture about just like stop eating the candy. Like, what's the problem? I would rather focus on, okay, you're having a lot of sugar cravings, that could potentially be because we are not eating enough food. Like that would be kind of the first thing that I would go to. So then the question would be like, okay, how much do you eat? Maybe we need to add some food. Maybe we need to add a meal. Maybe we need to add to this meal. So kind of, and basically then by having the focus of let's add here, add something to this meal or add a meal, then the sugar craving will just disappear basically, just because you added something instead of then questioning why am I having this sugar? I don't understand it. And then, we have it going. So, um, so basically, just, a little fun fact about how you can, how kind of what reinforcement is and how it kind of plays out in our everyday lives for all of us. But then going through the 6 steps of like coping or building better coping habits. I think this first one, B for break it down, is something that I talk with my clients about a lot. And this can look different depending on who you are and where you're at on your journey, where you're at with your routines. But as written here, like choosing one small anchor habit that's manageable even on your worst days. That's like that sentence really says it all. It's about having a range of for your expectation of yourself, right? So where it's kind of the minimum of what you can expect. So how to assess that is that you have to look at like what's your worst, most stressful day or week. You can look at it in, how big you want. But let's say day, just to make it simple, like the worst stressful day, like because we've all had those, right? So we have something specific that we can that pops up in our mind when we say that. So we have something tangible to kind of use when we are assessing what that looks like and what we can expect from ourselves. And of course, we can have something on our mind. We can decide for something, and then we get to that next day, and then we figure out that, oh, maybe I was a little, maybe I need to lower the bar a little bit, and that's okay. I think that's, assessing and changing is it's always potentially going to be part of the picture. So just assessing, what does that look like for you? And it can be like, what does that look like for, as example here, no matter what, I'll eat protein at lunch. And if that is something you would say, then that means that that is something that you always do. This is something that you always prioritize no matter how stressed you are. This is easy peasy for you. That's what that anchor habit should look like. It should be easy peasy no matter how stressed you are or what's going on in life. Every time you make this happen. And of course, there's always going to be exceptions. Like if you're lying in bed puking, like that's the exception, right? But like generally speaking, so choose, and you can have one for food, you can have one anchor habit for your movement, you can have one anchor habit for your sleep routine, for your mindfulness, whatever kind of, for water, whatever is, feels applicable to you in your life right now. So what that could look like is either choosing one of those things, like, okay, I'm not going to be able to commit to several habits on my worst stressful day, but I can commit to one. So again, that's going to look different for all of us. So you do you on that in that scenario. But I do believe no matter if you do one or if you do several, deciding on what it looks like for all of the different aspects of your routines, as the things that I mentioned with sleep, food, movement, could be outdoor time, yeah, whatnot. I would like you to kind of have an anchor habit for all of those, even if you choose to not expect all of those on your worst stressful day, if that makes sense. So, and as we have that, like the lowest expectation, it is also very applicable to also have an optimal. So we like, that's what I mean with the range. We have like, okay, this is the worst case scenario, that it looks like this. best case scenario, it looks like this is optimal, right? Like this is what we want. This is like if we lived a life where we were able to just, it was all about us, it's all about me. I'm able to do all the things that I want, and feel good about like checking off boxes at the end of the day. That's what this looks like. And I think that's easier. That one is easier to kind of assess what that looks like. But that is also important. Like, what does that look like? And then on both sides. And then, of course, naturally, what will appear is something in between, right? So it's a range. And this can be very helpful in assess and write it down, put it on your fridge, like whatever you need to do to kind of remember what you have told yourself, because otherwise, it's not useful. It has to kind of be imprinted that this is what, so that we can provide ourselves our own reinforcement when we are achieving. So if we have decided that bare minimum, this is what bare minimum looks like, and we achieve that, then we feel good about that. It's not like then we start, oh, but I could have done this. Like, no, no. If this is what we have decided, that's what you're going to feel good about. So that's also, we have to align what we decide with how we also kind of reward ourselves or reinforce ourselves post execution, so to speak. Environment is everything. As I mentioned earlier, like stimuli in our environment will kind of dictate, so to speak, our behavior. So setting ourselves up for success is going to be a huge part of the picture. So it's like yeah, it can definitely take some assessment. It can take some time, potentially, but it's going to be very helpful in long-term success. And also like feeling like you're in control. But I think that is very important too, to feel like you're in control. That is motivating in itself. That's a reinforcer in itself. So changing your surroundings to a way that it works for you. So that could be, for example, when it comes to food, it could be prepping in advance. And I think when it comes to prepping, that can look like a lot of things. It can be, you can prep for a whole week, or you can just prep one meal, or you can prep like you can prep protein. You can basically prep one item of protein. So it like that also is where you have to make that suit your life and what suits you with your time and whatnot. And I think experimenting a little bit with that can be very helpful as well to figure out, because sometimes we tell ourselves stories, right? Like this is not me, or I've never done it that way. So that doesn't, and then we try something new and it's like, oh, this actually feels really good. So, trying something new can't hurt either. But experimenting is always a good idea, I think. And it can also be like in regards to movement, it can be like putting out your clothes the day before. It could be just kind of making a mental note of like, what does the rest of the day look like? What does tomorrow look like? What do I need to have? So even if you don't put out the clothes, just knowing what to put on, for example, where is it? Is it in the laundry? Is it there for me in my drawer? Like just kind of having kind of thought through things first can be helpful. And of course, we don't always have mental space for that, but this in a scenario where you do, that can be very helpful. And then, of course, the more we do something like consistently or we create a habit, like at some point it will be kind of more second nature. And then, so usually it's more in the beginning when we have to use a little bit more energy to make something happen, and then it will more naturally happen. Or naturally, we have to do it, but like without putting too much mental effort into it, basically. So, and it could also be, I kind of have an from my own life thing right now where my Swedish candy, I think I'm gonna say sweet, like when when you pick and choose and you put in a bag, that's like the typical candy here in Scandinavia, and I love it. Like a really, or let's say I can eat a lot. Like if I get a hands on one of those bags, like blah, 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 it will just be and I will not have a worry in the world about it. And this weekend, this Friday, last Friday, I bought a unnecessary big bag of this because it's very easy to do when you pick small pieces, or for me at least. So on Sunday, we had a lot of leftovers. And this week has been stressful for me. It's been a lot. I've been working a lot with both school and work, and it's just been and last week was too. Andreas was away. I was alone with the kids, la la la. So Sunday, Monday, even today, the first thing that I've done when I get home is that I've gone straight to the cupboards into that bag of candy. And I know I can be very aware that like I need food right now. Like it's not that I don't know that I need to eat food, but I will still go because it's convenient. I feel stressed. It becomes kind of it becomes my quick reinforcer that I think that I deserve in the moment, right? So what can I learn from that? It's not going to change what has been the last couple of days. And that's not the end of the world. I don't think so. I don't feel guilty about it, but I can still assess that this is not helping me, right? It's not serving me in any way. So instead of then having the willpower to not go into that cupboard, which in a normal situation I would, when stress is just in a normal place, I would have no problems just leaving it to the next weekend. But when things are a little bit more stressful, like what I need to do is just not buy. Next time, I will just not buy as much candy, basically. I will not buy so that I have leftovers. Maybe I will just eat a chocolate bar instead because Friday nights, Saturday nights, I will eat candy. Like that's my thing. And I enjoy that, but I would like it to stick to that, right? So maybe that can be eating a chocolate bar and then the bar is gone and that's that. Or just buying less of that, those pick and choose candies. So it's about like just assessing like, okay, what went wrong here? Like why am I in this situation right now? I know exactly why. I will have to change that for the future. So I think we don't need to like make things the end of the world, but if something happens time and time and time and time again, and it's actually leading to you not getting to where you want to be with your physique goals or your health or promises to yourself, like feeling like you're accountable to yourself, like then we have to set ourselves up for success, instead of expecting ourselves to have better willpower because we won't. We might be for a little while, but then we also have to have energy. Habit stacking is something we talk a lot about. So attaching those anchor habits that we then have decided on forehand, what does that look like? What is our go-to habits that we're always going to be able to accomplish no matter how stressed we are? Like, okay, let's use those. Let's use those to attach another good habit to. So it could be, for example, then, drinking coffee, not to say that that is an anchor habit, but, but as an example here, just okay, if you know that you drink coffee, for example, I have creatine in my coffee every morning, the first cup of coffee. But before that, I will drink this water. And that is something that I have filled the night before. When I brush my teeth, I will make sure that this is filled up so that in the morning, the first thing that I can do when I get into the bathroom after a toilet visit, I can start drinking my water. I don't need to fill it up. It's easy. Um, and then I will either go outside, get some cold exposure or sun exposure while I drink my water. So I've habit stacked that. Um, and if I shower in the morning, I will finish off with a cold shower, which will be a substitute and getting outside, because otherwise I don't have time for both. I would have to get up earlier, and I don't want to do that. And then what I will do, I will literally bring my water bottle into the shower with me, and I will drink while I shower, like because that's what I do. Either I'm out or I'm in the shower and I'm drinking my water. So it's like thinking outside the box a little bit is as well is never going to hurt you, right? Like yes, you can bring your water bottle with you in the shower. we do that. Adjust the reward. So this is something that can be like very useful, that I think we don't use enough of necessarily, like a token system. And that is something you can create for yourself, where you like basically ticking off. We also have that in our app, like for at least our one-on-one clients, that we can use if a client wants that, way you can kind of tick off your daily habits. But you can make that yourself, right? There's probably plenty online that you can also just print out. And you can just be able to kind of, yep, done that, done that, done that. And that also gives you kind of a great overview over time of like, what am I accomplishing? What is hard for me? Where am I consistent? Where am I not? So it can be like a double win there. But if you don't do that, it could be, for example, if you're working with a one-on-one coach, of course, texting like, I've done this, now I did this. Or on forehand, it could even be like, I'm gonna, as a kind of what's the word, for accountability, is like, okay, I'm planning on doing this and this today. So just basically bringing something or someone aboard on your plan, so that it becomes both kind of an accountability partner in a way, and also a quick reinforcer that just brings that little feel good while you're waiting for that delayed reinforcer, which then is your results. Or at the end of the day, when you lay in bed and you can feel like, oh, today I really accomplished a lot of the things that I wanted. Um, and it can look like anything. It can also be like giving yourself a little time for listening to something, just being in the quiet, breathe, watching something, having a cup of coffee, like whatever like that looks like to you, right? Values. We talk a lot about values as well, but that really has a space here also, because this, I think both of these two last ones here, like values alignment and evaluating and evolve, like I think those two are really connected. Um, because while we're kind of working on the itty-gritty of our everyday life or our teens, it's like it can be a little robotic potentially, where we're just doing, and that's a good thing. We don't need to overthink everything. Sometimes we just have to act, right? We just have to do. But at the same time, really asking yourself now and then, like, what is my why? Like, why am I doing this? Because usually, like, at least my own experience, like having a physique or a health goal, it is like it's work. Like it takes a lot of, it takes mind capacity, it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes, choosing this instead of something else. It can come with so many different feelings that, like, really just knowing that your why, like, it really aligns with your values. I think it's important because I think we are gonna feel our best if we have alignment between our values and how we choose to show up in our lives. So, example, as written here, want to feel strong. That's why I put in the hours in the gym. That's why I get up early in the morning to get to the gym. That's and then want to model balance for my daughter, for my son, for my parents, for my partner. It could be anyone, right? So, or yourself, like just showing up for yourself. Maybe that wasn't you once, and now you want to show up for a younger version of you, right? So it could be, could be anything. Uh, but I think many of us can go through a whole lifetime without even thinking about our values. So this one, I think, can be very helpful. Evaluating and evolve. I definitely do believe to be able to evolve, we have to evaluate. I don't think we accidentally evolve as like an individual, at least. So this is, of course, something that is natural to do if you're working with a one-on-one coach. This is something you are going to do every week in your weekly check-in. But if you don't do that, Or even if you are doing that and you are one that is not necessarily very talkative on your check-ins, this is something you should be doing on your own. At least you should do it with your coach, but just having those thoughts for yourself, if not anything else, is going to be very helpful. So, like, what has worked this week? And that, I think it's also like looking at that from a week, like very stressful week, looking at that from an optimal week, looking at like any week. So not just like looking at it from on an post an optimal week and then like, ooh, just brushing it off when you have a very stressful week. It's very important to do it like no matter what. And of course, not necessarily every week, but that we just on the regular kind of just like check in with ourselves. What worked well? What was hard this week? What did not work this week? What will I try differently next week? So it can be very helpful in understanding yourself. Like another example from my own life in the moment is that when I started school and like just life got more busy, basically, I was like, oh, perfect. They have a gym at school. I can use that. So I stopped going to my normal gym. It just took too much of my time. I was like, I'm going to go to the gym at school. I'm there, like it works out super. And they have, things that I need and such and such. But then after a while, I started noticing that I didn't bring workout clothes to the school. Like I just didn't do it. And then I was like, okay, I'll work out at home. But then I also asked myself, why? Like it's so easy. Why, what is the problem? Why do I not do that? And what I established for myself is that that is one more thing for me to do in the morning, like putting out or basically packing that bag of training clothes. Like that was the tip. That was like where it was, that was just the one thing that became one thing too many for me. Or that's my assessment, at least. That it just, I have so many things that I'm checking off in the morning with having three kids and, myself and all the, yeah, you know what it is. That just became too much. And I have to give myself grace there. But I talked with Michaela before this call and we talked about it and like, okay, but let's say the scenario is that, okay, I'm working out at home, but then I don't work out at home because I don't like that. And I really need that gym. Like, okay, what can I do to actually make it happen? Then I have to look at my environment. Like, okay, the mornings are it's just too much for me in the mornings. Okay, what can I do? I can then go back and look at the night before. Can I pack that bag the night before then instead, so it's ready for me in the morning and I don't have to think about it in the morning? That would be an appropriate thing for me to do. Now it stopped sharing, but that's okay. That would be an appropriate thing for me to do in that case. So it's about like just assessing where you're at with how do you live your life? How do you live through stress? How do you live through something optimal? And how can you set yourself up for success, basically, no matter what it looks like? I see that we have
Love
some.
it. Thank you, Henrietta, for sharing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't even know what the time is. I'm just
No,
talking.
you're good. Um, I hope everyone can benefit from this. And if you guys have any questions on stressful times in life and like what strategies are going to help you and what anchor habits are going to help you, we're always here to give you guidance on that.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
guys.
much. Have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.